You Only Live Twice is a spy film and stars Sean Connery. So when I first saw this film years ago, this was at the bottom of my least liked James Bond films. Having revisited the film years later for the purpose of this review, I have definitely softened my stance on it. Firstly, I have to give it to the filmmakers for giving us the first James Bond movie to have such a sense of scale to it. All the previous Bond films up to this point have felt small and self-contained. And while James Bond did go globetrotting in those films, the locations never visually wowed me. But with You Only Live Twice, this film feels huge. The film's main setting, which is in Japan, has a really colorful and vibrant culture and some of the most visually pleasing scenery in the entire series. The plot of this film also makes it feel more important for Bond to succeed in the end. But even then, this film still has a multitude of issues, and some of these were the same issues I had with Dr. No. Firstly, this film lacks great characters. As always, Sean Connery as James Bond is great, but it definitely felt like he was carrying the whole movie as no other character stood out. Not even the villain, which I will talk about in a little bit. The film also tended to rely on special effects a little bit too much, almost bordering on the line of ridiculous. The film's story, which I do give credit for tackling the space war of the 1960s, unfortunately isn't the most exciting 007 story. The action scenes for what they were fine, but nothing stood out. The film is mostly forgettable except for one character. Now, getting into what is most fondly remembered about this film, and that is the legendary Bond villain, Blofeld, played wonderfully by Donald Pleasence, and it's this version of the character that was the main inspiration for the Austin Powers character, Dr. Evil. But here is my unpopular opinion on this character, and why I don't think he's one of the best Bond villains of all time. Firstly, despite the build-up of this one character in the previous Bond films being done so perfectly, the ultimate execution of the character has never been done right, and believe me, I will get into that one later. Despite Blofeld being the main villain of You Only Live Twice, like Dr. No, he's barely on screen long enough to pose as a legitimate threat. At best, the character is only on screen for 5 minutes, which I feel was a major waste of Donald Pleasence, as, in my opinion, his version of Blofeld is still the best and the most recognizable. At least with the villains in the previous films, there was a presence to them, because they were given enough screen time so their personalities and goals could make a lasting impact on the audience. I'm sorry, but with Blofeld, the only thing that I remember about him is his look, and that's it. Overall, while it's better than I remember, it's still not one of the best Bond films. The film tends to rely on its gadgets and gimmicks a little too much. The characters were very lackluster, and the villain, despite this version being the most popular, he was still weak in the end. The setting was a visual treat to look at, and the action scenes were serviceable. Other than that, not much else. And I'm gonna give You Only Live Twice a 7 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to my channel below. As always, I'm NETX5. Thank you for watching.